Ladies and gentlemen, grab your gloves and get your compost ready. Stepping into the ring is the perennial powerhouse, the sultan of soil, the beast of the beds, where permaculture reigns, food grows wild, community roots run deep, and yes, the garden puns hit hard. Freedom starts in the soil. This is the Guerrilla Gardening Show.
Welcome back to the Guerrilla Gardening Show. My name is Mike with Mike's in the Garden. Back as always with my friend Sam from Central Florida Abundance. What's happening, Sam?
What's going on, Mike? I've been out here in the food forest working this past week, and I got a video that I want to share that really highlights like what a young food forest really looks like. You know, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, but this is a small little spot that really encapsulates that. I think it might be helpful for people to see what these things look like starting out.
Yeah, for sure. We were messing around a few minutes before here trying to record. And what I liked about what I saw briefly was, you know, people think food forest, oh, I need to have all this land. And it's helpful if you have a lot of land, but you could have a front yard or backyard. And like this video is going to show here, the amount of food production that you can create in a small area. So yeah, let's get it going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll pull it up here. Um, so here it is. And this is kind of just a good overview of the whole food forest. And, you know, I want to start by kind of explaining what I mean by food forest. Food forest, you know, is a forest style garden. It is a managed area using mostly tree species that are going to produce, you know, that have some edible qualities. And those are the trees are the main plants that, you know, we're trying to grow here. But in, you know, in the aspects of forestry, we're trying to emulate a more natural system. And, you know, trees are never just going to pop up in a field on their own with no protection. You know, there's going to be other successions of plants that exist around them. And we skip a lot of those steps when we start planting on our own. But in this bed, in this bed, you can see that there's a lot of intentional understory. And you know, that's really the biggest thing is intentional species. Here, let me go back just a little bit to the understory. I know the mangoes and the papayas are exciting, but this is the real exciting part in the beginning. So if you look down here, there's perennial peanut, there's a native creeping porterweed, there's pigeon peas in here. There's a very diverse arrangement of species. Also, right up front is a vetiver grass. That's a chop and drop grass species that are it's being used to mulch. And so, what all these plants do, you know, you think, you know, I want to grow these trees. Why do I got to grow 1,500 other plants just to grow these trees? And the main reason is the soil. You know, we want to build healthy soil conditions for these trees. And these kinds of diverse plant communities are what build healthy soil. And the reason that, you know, we're mostly focused on ground cover, you know, low growing plants here is because that's what this area was. It was a lawn. You know, all the species here were short, you know, low, shallowly rooted. And so we've incorporated, well, I will say that I didn't install this food forest. This was installed by our friend Cameron at the Grow Food Company. Um, but I do maintain this for them. I visit it bi-weekly to help the homeowner take care of it. But really, this system's about a year old and it's doing extremely well. The homeowner is taking excellent care of it, mulching these
Sam,
grasses.
on the
Yeah.
right there,
Oh,
you
okay.
can back it up a second. Is that some dog vomit going on there?
Uh, I
right
don't
there.
think so. It wouldn't
See,
surprise me.
you see that behind this grass? It looks like there's like a solar light there or something on the right side
Yeah,
of the video.
yeah, right up here. There's a little solar light. Oh, and
No, no,
over
no.
here as well.
To the right of that watering can.
Oh, the
Yeah, yeah.
turtle.
Oh, that's a
Oh,
turtle. Okay.
it's a terracotta turtle. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right.
No,
All right.
but the dog you can see it better there.
Okay. Okay.
The dog vomit, that's pretty common to see, especially I assume when this system was first put in. I know that they used wood chip mulch, and there was probably a lot of that.
Mhm.
Since it was all planted, the understory plants have been able to cover that mulch and replace, its purpose. And then you don't get as much of that. Most of the mulch that's in this system now is chop and drop from the vetiver grasses. There's a chaya that gets chopped and dropped. And then in the center, I don't think I took a video. I got it in the video for a minute, but there's a very large copper pod tree, which is a
Okay.
nitrogen fixer. Here it is. We're circling over to it. That's the trunk of it right there on the right of this
Okay.
papaya. And you can see hopefully the leaf scars up this, and we've kind of just been chopping it, getting it tall, so it's going to provide some midday canopy over this system, and that's really important for keeping the grass out. The turf grasses, it's almost impossible to weed them if they're existing as a border around your beds, but the shade from the trees, that is the long-term solution for getting the grass to stop growing. So if you can get shade quickly, then you can keep it from coming back after you cut it. But you can see in the understory here, there's a lot of herbs. There is a rosemary, but then there's a blue spur wildflower. That's like this clump here.
Mhm.
There's Cuban oregano over to the left. And the density of the plantings here are really what make it so idealistic in terms of what the understory of a young food forest should look like. There should be no bare soil at all, and ideally you don't have bare patches of mulch either. You want to fill every spot space with living plants. And now when this was planted, obviously there were gaps, but there were small enough gaps that the plants that were put in were intended to grow out and fill those spaces, and they've done just that. um there's only one area where we've planted new plants after the original planting, where you can just see it's dense down here. It's the soil staying covered, the moisture staying in, and there's a constant cycle of decaying material on the floor. You see, we've got the pigeon peas here. They're getting chopped and dropped. They're just getting reseeded. And I mean, I'll get into this side because this is the exciting bit. We've got this mango here on the right. And I think it was like a 7-gallon mango when it was planted like a year ago. It's been pruned twice
Wow.
to encourage a widening of the canopy. And you can see this new growth here. It's just doing so well. The papaya also, I mean, papayas are weedy trees, it's early succession, but it's amazing to see these large, healthy leaves on the papaya. And then the lower leaves down there, as they wither away, as they will. That's completely natural and healthy. That just provides more biomass for the system. And you can see, I'm about to go in. There's a lot of useful species. This is a Suriname spinach. So this is an edible annual green. I think the flowers are edible too, but the leaves are real succulent. It reminds me of purslane. Have you ever eaten that?
I've tried it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how they're kind of squishy, like
Yeah.
slimy,
Mhm.
in a good way, crunchy, crisp.
Sure.
But yeah, they're a lot like this. And then over on the side of that is, I think more of the Cuban
Cuban
oregano.
oregano. Yeah.
Yeah, which the homeowner does use. Um, they're they use a lot of the herbs and non-traditional things, the cassava here. Um, this loquat or the avocados looking really good. Avocados are just very slow growing trees. And so, if we had just planted an avocado and a mango here, because that was really what is desired in the long term. They want a nice avocado and a nice mango in their front yard. But if we had just planted them, after a year's time, without a lot of outside inputs as far as fertilizers and water, they're going to struggle. Whereas this system, when we plant all of these plants around that are really meant to take care of them, the only thing that's really happened in this system is plants have been pruned. As they get too large, too competitive, they get chopped back. There's not a lot of like pulling of weeds. Some larger plants that have encroached can be pulled up or chopped down. Um, but most of the time, with the grasses, with the annual weeds that pop up in here, they're just smothered by mulch. We cut down a chaya, or cut down branches of the chaya, cut down some papaya leaves, and then we mulch that in on top of whatever's growing to shade it out. Um, Over here on this side, you can see this beautiful fire bush.
Mm.
And the fire bush, I mean, it's a great space filler. I think this is a dwarf, so it won't get as large. Um, but I always recommend having one of these plants in your food forest, because food forests, fruit, food producing plants, I mean, most, flowering things are going to encourage a lot of bee and wasp activity. And when you're pruning a lot, when you're harvesting a lot, sometimes you can disturb them and get stung. They're just trying to defend themselves. But this firebush plant here, when you crush up the leaves, I've told you about this and I preach about it all the time because it's amazing. You can crush up the leaves and get an oil out of them and put that on uh, the sting of a wasp or a bee, and it's almost an immediate effect. Um, and so, when you're working in the garden, even if it's not a food forest garden, if you have a garden and have this plant out here, it likes to have water. It's not going to grow full sun in the sand, but in the right place, it's a pretty hardy plant, and it is native. It's a hummingbird attractor, so it's got a lot of purposes. But I mean, if it can stop, if it can stop bee stings, I don't know if you've ever done that with tobacco. Like, you can use. No, you never done that. You didn't grow up in the South.
No, I haven't been around too much tobacco. Now, do you need to rub the leaves and the flowers together, or just the leaves?
Just the leaves.
The leaves?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's all year. It doesn't have to be flowering to work. Um, and the berries, I don't think that they're good to eat raw, but I have heard that people make a really tasty wine out of them. So they have their own edible properties there. But it's a plant that would live, in a young developing forest. So it's going to grow pretty quickly, comparative to like the avocado. Um, get a lot of height, block a lot of wind, keep the avocado protected while it's small. But then in 5 to 10 years, this fire bush will probably start to decline, in its optimal health, and it can be removed from the system. The material brought into the soil, and at that point, 5 years down the road, this avocado is ready to take off. You give it the space by cutting down the larger plants around it, and then just allow the avocado to use those nutrients.
Sam, real quick, I
yeah.
know you taught me and have expressed this many times on this channel. With certain trees, I would imagine plants as well, it's not ideal to have branches or leaves touching. So when you have a food forest that's very dense like this, does it still, obviously, if we're not consuming the firebush or the cranberry hibiscus or the pigeon pea, and a lot of this is just biomass, it probably doesn't matter as much. But where that firebush was kind of touching a little bit of the avocado, touching a little bit of the papaya. Is that something that really needs to be worried about, or not so much?
So it's kind of like right here, you can see it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're completely right. They're not quite on top of each other yet. That cassava behind it, it has shot up. Like this video was shot last week, and probably a month prior, that cassava was like half the size.
Okay.
So it needs to be thinned out. The firebush, the pigeon peas, everything around the avocado, you need to give it space. It's the same thing. Like you said, you don't want those branches touching, even on separate plants. And, we just control that through the pruning and the maintenance. Once this fire bush gets too large and starts encroaching on the avocado, it's probably time to cut it now. But it's one of those things when you only have so much time to do everything, you prioritize certain things over others. But
Sure.
soon this will become an immediate priority, because what happens, is when the leaves touch, even on the same plant, uh, it traps moisture. It becomes a protected place for pests and, leaf feeding insects, fungus that can, deteriorate the plant from the inside. So you want to keep things dry and open to the air. Um, so yeah, in a dense food forest like this, where you have a lot of plants packed in, the understory stuff, not so much of a concern, because, it's very temporary. Maybe the first, 2 or 3 years it'll be there, and then we kind of want it to go. But the food plants, the long-term stuff, you've got to stay on top of the pruning and make sure that you're not, contributing to the spread of disease by having, too much crowding on top of each other. So I mean, that's a good observation, and that's something that, people don't think about as much. Luckily, with systems like this, you can, walk away for 6 months and then come back and be like, oh, I should probably prune this now.
All right.
These things have gotten crazy, and then things are still okay, you know. Um, but you can see in this area, it's kind of open. And I think originally whatever plants went in here didn't work. I don't know what was planted originally, but they just didn't take off. The grass kind of recovered itself. So a couple weeks ago, I went in and cleared it, and that's this is the next thing you really need to focus on with these food forests, is that they're dynamic. The first series of plants that go in are not going to be your forever plants. Maybe a couple of them. Maybe your long-term trees. But you got to be adaptable. Ideally in the beginning, you plant, unless you already know what's going to grow well, you plant the diversity of things. You see what succeeds the best, what things are easy to manage, and then, a year later, you plant out some more of those same things in mass. Um, so one of the things that works really well in this yard is the roselle, the Jamaican sorrel.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I went ahead and did. You can see the one at the bottom of the camera here, but then
Yeah.
this one,
See another one.
and they just bush out. So, they're medium, uh, well, medium short bushes, but they'll shade out all of the grass here and also provide some delicious leaves. Um, and then you can see the mulberry here, but all the trees here get pruned very attentively. They've been pruned several times this year. Even this strawberry tree that looks crazy, I think I pruned it maybe right before I took this clip. I even took a branch off the top. But it's a very, very fast growing tree. It's another chop and drop species for me, because it really won't stick around more than 10 years. And if you don't prune them relentlessly, they get a little absurd.
Okay.
They can be 40 feet wide and
I've seen
40
those,
feet
yeah.
tall. Yeah. And then how do you get the cherries?
Yeah.
I guess you climb it.
Could be fun.
I would like to see some Jamaican cherry climbing trees. um, but yeah, I mean, this is just a really good example of, how to manage and implement a young food forest. And then after this, you just expand outwards. There's the rest of this yard. We could plant more trees, some more understory stuff around the edges of this, and just keep eliminating the grass over time. Um,
So Sam, I'm a homeowner looking at this, and it looks like this is the backyard or the front yard.
this is the front yard.
Okay. Um, so I'm a homeowner, and I would imagine, maybe you know, maybe you don't. I know you say Ken did this. It looks like this was like a front landscape area that was already in place. I'm just like looking at the stones, maybe.
It actually was not. I do know that. They
Okay.
cut the sod out of here.
Okay. So they just were like, hey, let's make a kidney bean shaped
They
food
call it
forest.
the bean. That is
Okay.
the name of it. The bean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you've got the stones leading up to it, and but yeah, this is, from a homeowner's standpoint, and I have like really two front yard food forest patches now. Um, but really, from a homeowner standpoint, I mean, I think there's over 20 different species that we just went over here, and this is
Oh
probably
yeah.
300 square feet, maybe probably less than that even. Um,
Yeah, I think on the longest front edge, it's like 20, maybe 25 feet long, and then it's like 15 feet wide but then on the other side, it's shorter than that.
yeah,
It's real dense, and I think it's pretty. You can see this from the road with the
yeah,
stones and everything.
yeah.
Uh, I don't know how much time we have left, but I do have a video of the backyard, and it's less pretty, but it's uh,
Let's bring it up
got a
real
lot of
quick.
growth in it.
Yeah, we're 20 something minutes into it right now, so we can pull up another video real quick. Um,
Hold up.
I'll give Sam some promo right now while he's bringing up this video. If you want a front yard food forest to look like this, then head over to Central Florida Abundance and reach out to Sam, and maybe he
I'll
can
do your maintenance. Now,
help.
this area is just getting started. So
Okay.
while we're advertising, that was a bad spot to look. But this area is where I've been focusing. And so this is the backyard. The chickens live back here.
Okay.
Um, it's crazy. The papayas are all just seedlings that have popped up.
Yeah.
You can see this passion fruit coming up on this chicken coop.
Okay.
Um, and so this is the area that gets less attention because it's not roadside. But I don't know if you caught that, but we just on the top left, she's just getting her first rack
Oh
of
yeah.
bananas back
Yeah.
here. And I mean, you've had some experience with bananas. These are 1 year old, planted in 1 gallon pots, so they're healthy. And the chickens run through here. You can see all the litter on the ground from the chop and drop. I'm even pointing it out. Um, but the thing about this backyard is there's really no understory species that are intentional, but there is that
Yeah.
banana rack.
Yeah.
um, and that's mostly because of the chickens. We're working on some stuff to try to get more species under there, but if you look underneath this passion vine, that's where the chickens hang out, and they just tear it up.
Nice.
So it's hard to get anything really established, but the chickens do provide some nutrients. These are all mulberry trees.
Wow.
There are three mulberry trees in that little tiny spot.
Hmm.
This is a little annual bed she's doing. But
But
yeah,
yeah,
so
potential,
those are
you know?
yeah, two contrasts in the same yard.
Yeah.
And it really just kind of shows like, you know, where your attention goes.
Yeah. Excellent. That's a good
Yeah,
primer for anyone that, what do they say? The best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, and the second best time is today.
that's true. And we are in Florida, so depending on what tree, we can
Pretty much
plant
any time.
trees all year. It in the middle of January, December, go plant your plums. Go plant the peaches then. And any other time of year, plant your tropical stuff. It's uh September right now, and it was September when I shot this video. and I prune this starfruit tree, and it's going to have plenty of time to heal before any sort of frost activity, you know. And don't let those ideal timings hang you up from doing something that is better just to do now. It might be more ideal. People always tell me only plant my seeds on the new moon. And I tell them if I only did that, then I would miss out on the entire rest of the month for seed planting. I can't just put it all on one day a month.
Yeah, yeah,
It might be a little better, but you gotta be reasonable.
yeah,
So get out and start a food forest, y'all. Just do it.
yeah, for sure. Go watch these videos. Go. I just get caught in the YouTube rabbit hole and just have all this inspiration watching other people grow food. And it really is that simple. Go to the store, buy some of your favorite vegetables, figure out how to propagate the seeds from those plants, and just get started. It's amazing when you take a sweet potato and then you get some little eyes, you cut the eye off, stick it in some water, or stick it in the ground, and next thing you know, like my yard, 4 years later, you can't get rid of sweet potatoes, and if anything,
Yeah.
they're now invasive. My neighbors have sweet potatoes, but
Kill your lawn with sweet potatoes.
yeah, I'm not charging them for the sweet potatoes.
Uh, yeah, I mean, just go out and do it, guys. I mean, this is, you know, we can talk about what the ideal stuff to plant is, but at the end of the day, if your backyard or your yard is just grass and you want a garden, get stuff in the ground, and learn as much as you can about it, and then just maintain and adapt. Don't give up. That's the best gardeners have killed millions of plants, and you're really not a expert gardener until you've killed at least a certain amount of plants. So if you've only killed a couple, just know that you got to get those numbers up, guys.
Yeah,
Kill
you're
some more
not you're not
plants.
doing it right if you're going to kill a
No,
couple things.
you're not planting enough. That's the thing. Don't let that fear hold you back, because that's how nature does it. The oak tree is gonna make 1,000 seeds so that maybe 10 of those seedlings can live to mature oak tree size. So if you want to garden like nature, throw out 75% more than you actually want to finish off in there. Keep it planted dense, and you're going to keep the plants happy.
And like the shirt says, gardening is, effing around and finding out. So that's what you got to do. You got to get out there, and maybe this tree planted in this spot's getting too much sun. Maybe it's not getting enough water. Um, just get out there and experiment. And then
If you don't F
next
around,
thing,
you'll never find out,
that's true. That's true.
Gotta do it.
Sam, I
Uh,
want to share our friend Wendy here and her great page. This is actually how I came across uh, you. Was you were on her
through her
podcast,
podcast.
The Joyful Prepper. So tell us a little bit more about Wendy, Sam.
Yeah, Wendy is great. She found me, I think, back in 2020, and she wanted to turn her whole yard into, a food forest paradise. And we've been working together on and off for the past 5 years now, and she's transformed a lot of her front yard. I've posted some videos. I've actually got a video on YouTube, the front yard food forest. I'll probably link that, is of her food forest.
Okay.
And it's another great example of how to build your system slowly over time. It's all started with a couple small beds that just became connected more and more. Um, but yeah, she's all about sustainability and food preservation. If stuff hits the fan, I mean, I don't know if we should put her out there like that, but I know where I'm going. But no, yeah, Wendy, I mean, she's processed her own chickens. We worked together to do some pasture raised meat birds. Um, Recently, she gave me some beef tallow that she'd processed herself through, and all of that stuff, all of that knowledge she shares, on her podcast, here on the Instagram page. And just kind of spreads the message of how to do it for yourself. And I love that. Have you met Wendy before?
I have not. I share her stuff because I, enjoy her podcast, and um, she's fun to watch everything she has going on out there. So
We're gonna have to do a tour someday of just everybody going around to each other's food forests, around Central Florida, because there's so
yeah,
much inspiration. Everybody does things a little bit differently,
yeah,
and if we could just someday, we'll do we'll make a video series out of it.
yeah, I love it. Awesome. Sam, another great episode, a good introduction, or kind of a showcase of how simple get yourself started with a mini food forest kit can be.
Yeah, how to start a food forest in a box.
Yeah, yeah.
They should be selling these at Lowe's.
Well, if they want to find more of you, Sam, and your consulting services and how they can get a food forest started, where should they go?
Absolutely. Check out Central Florida Abundance on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube if you're watching this on Mike's channel. I offer consultations, installation services, and of course, the maintenance that you saw parts of here. You can also check out igofarm.com if you're in Polk County and looking to get some locally grown, forest grown produce. We have our harvest boxes for sale now.
Excellent. And if you want to get yourself effing around and finding out gardening shirt, as well as some other, cool, amazing designs that I designed myself with no help from AI whatsoever. None.
They know you're lying, man. The AI is listening.
Yeah. Or if you want to get a Guerrilla Gardening shirt, become a Guerrilla Gardener, I think that's something you should definitely check out. And you can go to Mike's in the Garden pretty much everywhere, and there'll be a link tree with a link to the Etsy shop. You can support the channel and the silly videos that I put out right here. Get yourself some sweet gear.